Coaching and consulting industry allowed for an easy and quick access for many people to speed up their business journey. And as much as it's a fantastic and truly needed service for aspiring business owners, sadly, it also has some undeniable flaws in the way it is conducted. And the main holes revolve around misinformation or lack of clarity, which often leads to misalignment between the expectations and reality of business. I am being joined today by Laura Parr, a mindset mentor, business coach, and a consultant of one of the largest consulting companies here in London, United Kingdom. And she's got a great story of her own missed expectations, which caused her to let go of a very lucrative property business, despite having generated over £750,000 in profit, letting go of what anyone would class a successful and privileged position to chase her passion of helping others and to take a stand for the importance of building proper foundation for a sustainable business. My name is Magdalena Hanna, and this is season 2 of Habits of Influence, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly sides of entrepreneurship and how to become the person others wish to follow. Hey Laura, how are you today?
I'm really good. Thank you very much for having me on.
It's a pleasure. Look, when we last spoke, you've emphasized how important it is to have a full scope of information when you're first starting out in business. Looking at your journey now from a perspective, what would you say you would have done differently had you received more clear and concise information about running a property business? And could that have impacted your path as a business owner?
I think definitely yes. I mean, for me, I just don't think that, everything I do with my clients now, it's about setting up and starting with the right foundations. And I just don't think I did that. So, I went down the route of, I love property, so this must be a really good thing for me to follow. But, you and I both know that property is an overarching term for a lot of different things. And I didn't really delve any deeper than that. So I just kind of thought, yeah, anything to do with property, I love it. I love watching, houses get redone, all these sorts of different things. But actually, the facet of property that I ended up spending most time in, I never really consciously stepped back at any point and went, is this really what I want to be doing? There are other things that I could be doing. Is this the best path? It was more just that I'd kind of gone, yeah, I like property, tick, let's go. And I didn't foundational questions. And I think that's what ended up kind of leading me down a path of following the money, essentially, and thinking, well, I know this strategy, I know how it works. It's, once I understood it, it was like, well, this is really simple. I could see the progression to financial success. And so I was like, well, why wouldn't I just scale this business? But in actual fact, I forgot to kind of ask myself the questions around, does this fulfill me? Do I enjoy it? Is this really worth it? If the money is coming in, that's great. But if I hate every second of doing it, then is it really something that I want to be doing long term? And I never really took the time to consciously step back and ask myself those questions. So that was definitely something that I skipped in the first instance. And it's why I make such a big deal of going through it with my clients now, so that they don't make the same kind of mistake.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you said something very important and very interesting at the same time. A lot of people do have the tendency of just going into business for the sake of going into business because it's trendy, because it's something that everybody does, because there's this predisposition of how I'm going to be my own boss, there's this life freedom, I can do whatever I want. But in reality, what happens is we've got those, like I said, mixed or missed expectations about what it actually is, what it involves, how much more you need than just knowledge of the strategy overall. And what I think people miss is that money is not enough of a motivator to stay in business, essentially. Because yeah, of course you can do the business, you can make great money on a business, right? But it does not mean that you're going to be able to enjoy it full term. And I do have my own story as well with my first online business, where I have completely missed what I wanted to do and what it involved. And sadly, I mean, like the business is still running, it's fully automated, but I'm not enjoying it. I'm not putting as much time into it, which means that the business is not where it could be, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And you need that passion and that sort of fire inside to keep it going. Because I was in the very same position before I sold my property business, in that I kind of said, right, well, now is a juncture. I either commit, scale, grow. I know how this works. I could set it up quite easily, keep it going, or I quit and I just do what I want to do. And it got to that point where, the decision had to be made, because you need to put time and effort and energy in it. And yeah, if you don't love it, my business could have been 10 times bigger than what it actually was when I sold it. But it wasn't, because I'd got to the point where I disliked it so much that I just thought, I can't be bothered. And if you can't be bothered, what are you doing it for? So it was just absolutely the wrong place for me to be. And I heard something recently as well, which it 100% resonated. I've said this about 1,000 times in the last sort of few days. I heard someone saying that, money is a motivator. We think it is, because we think, well, I need money because I want to go traveling, and I need money because I want to quit my job, and I need money because I want to do this, and money, 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 money. And yes, money is incredibly important, and it allows us to do the things we want to do. But if, for example, I said, well, I'll give you £1 million, but you have to die tomorrow, would you take it? The answer is no. So, okay, it's not as important as, living your life. And then you go, okay, well, I'll give you £1 million, but you have to be sick every single day for the rest of your life. Would you take it? No. Okay, so health is more important. I'll give you £1 million, but, your parents have to die. Well, no. So your family's more important. So suddenly you think money's right up here, and you think, this is what I need. And actually, when it boils down to it, there are so many different things that are above it that money starts to fall down the list of importance anyway. So knowing what those things are and being able to do that pre-work and understand what it is that is important is far more important than using the money as the motivation. So when times do get tough and you do get a bit bored, or you lose a big client, or whatever the situation may be, you're able to tap back into that amazing passion and whatever it is that's motivated you in the first instance, rather than just, I've lost money and I wanted money, so that's a bit of a sucky situation to be in, because that's not going to motivate you to keep going.
Absolutely. I love what you said, because it's about those boring and not about those mundane tasks, or about
Yeah.
the challenges that will occur, because come on, in business they will happen, and regardless of how well prepared you are, how long you are in business, there's always going to be that one situation that's going to hit you, right? And it's not going to be the money that is going to take you out of this mind frames like, oh my god, things are not working out, or I don't know what to do. It's going to be that underlying passion of like, I want to do this, oh my gosh, this was my dream, I'm so enjoying this, I don't want to lose this, let me go and do XYZ, right? Not to lose it, or to overcome this challenge, overcome this struggle. I love that, I love that. Would you say that, had you been guided in the beginning, your path would be different? Would you stay in property if you were told about all the ins and outs and you were more prepared? Because, like I said, I just mentioned being the preparedness factor
Yeah.
makes it a little bit easier. Do you think that that would change anything, or would you still feel that
Oh, that's a
there
good
was a
question.
misalignment there?
That is a very good question. I I think, based upon where I am now and the amount that I love what I currently do, I'm not sure that I would have stayed in it. I think it's one of those very strange things where if you gave me £1 million, I would go and renovate a property, because I still love that side of it. But I love it as a hobby. And this is a thing that I think a lot of people misunderstand sometimes. Just because you love baking doesn't mean that you need to open a bakery. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some things are just meant to be hobbies. And I think I love it, and I could own a property company again, but I'd probably be focusing on leveraging it out, so that I wasn't the one that was solely running things, or even being the major player in running things. But I think what I have now and the purpose that I have, because now it's not just about me building a coaching business, it's not about just the people that I work with. That's a huge factor. I absolutely love my clients. I love the things that I talk about. I love getting to come on podcasts and talk to people like you. And I love the topics that we talk about. But also, it stems to be even bigger than that for me. It's my purpose. So, my big mission with all of this is that I want to ultimately create a sort of a gathering of women that are all creating conscious businesses and all doing amazing things to give themselves financial freedom and financial abundance, but also create social, economic, environmental benefits. And it's almost like the ultimate leverage. You know how they say, you can't save the world, you're just one person. This is almost like my ultimate leverage. Like if I can help 100 people, 200 people, 1,000 people to start their own little businesses that are helping the world, and make sure that, I do it in the way that they're successful and that they stick around, and it's a long-term sustainable business and it helps as many people as it can. That's ultimately me being able to help in so many different facets of the business world and the environmental and social world as well. So that for me is my big picture. Like it's a huge thing. It's a beast in my head, and it could keep me going for decades to come. But I love it. It doesn't intimidate me, it excites me. And that's not necessarily something I had with property. I love renovating a house, but at the end of the day, it's, well, if I renovate and rent out 10 houses, I can make X amount of money, and that's how much money I'll have in the bank. And that's about as far as it goes. I know you can add certain things to it, but for me personally, I still sort of get excited by that because I love the renovation process. But the business that I do now and the work that I do, I just feel like it's so much more important.
Mm.
And there's so much more I can do with it. So I don't think it would have changed the trajectory of where I am. I don't think I'd still be in it. Potentially I'd have left it sooner, because I think hopefully I would have had this realization a little bit sooner. And it would have been something that I could have started earlier in my journey.
Right, right. I mean, it's the meaningfulness of what you do right now. I think that is the biggest reason why you want to be in it. Would you say that's the case?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm not in any way quashing the desire for money, because I even had this conversation with a client this morning. Money, the more money you make, the more people you can help and the more you can sort of do. And it's
Absolutely.
absolutely okay. And especially for women, I work a lot with women, and I feel like sometimes they talk about the fact that wanting money is almost a bit of a sin. It's, they don't, what they feel like they're going to be greedy, or feel like they're going to be judged as being greedy if they say I want £1 million. And actually, I think if you want £1 million, you have £1 million. You want 10 million, let's go for 10 million. That's absolutely fine. But if it's your sole motivation, you're missing out on having so much more meaning, creating a legacy. And my whole thing is you can create that money that you want, and you can do something amazing that fulfills you and gives you inspiration, legacy, makes you want to get up in the morning, and do all these things over and above. It makes me enough money.
And I think us as women, we do have that tendency, don't we, to kind of have this romanticized, a little bit spiritual version of what a business should and should not be. But the truth of the matter is, it is a business. And as much as we want to help people, as much as we have the best intentions, and this is something that guides us, we also are normal people, have bills to pay, families to sustain. And like you said, the more successful you are as a person, the more people you're actually able to help, because your energetic level with which you are showing up is completely different. It's not that scarcity mindset, I have to get the clients, which means that you're showing up better for the people that you work with. And that impacts not only you, but it impacts them in the way that they show up for their people and spread the message. And like you said, kind of creating a movement, a legacy, something that a lot of people can benefit from. It's kind of like a snowball effect, isn't it?
Absolutely. And yeah, you've hit the nail on the head, because, if you're worrying about, well, the bills are coming in at the end of the month and I haven't been able to pay my kids' school fees, or maybe the mortgage is coming in and I can't afford to pay it this month. Are you really going to turn up to work to deal with whoever it is that you're helping, or whoever it is that you're working with a completely clear mind, ready and raring to take on their issues or their challenges or whatever it is that you do? No. you're going to have something at the back of your head that's like, what am I going to do when I get home? You know, how am I going to make this extra money? And again, I've had this with a client recently, and she's got this incredible idea, but the service that she wants to provide is specifically to provide it to people that can't afford it. So obviously that naturally brings in questions of, well, I can't charge very much, because if they can't afford it and that's who I want to be helping, then, you know, I need to be charging low prices. So she mentally limited how much she was able to charge. And then when we actually worked out what she wanted to do with her life and how she wanted to run it, she was never going to make it, because she would have
Mm.
had to have so many clients to be able to fulfill that need, that number one, she wouldn't have the time to service the clients properly, and number two, it's still probably, it would exhaust her. She'd just burn out. And I sort of introduced this idea of, you do realize that making money is not something you need to be guilty or feel guilty for, and the more money you make, the more people you can actually help. So you're sort of almost doing a disservice
Yeah.
to your potential clientele, because of the fact that you're only willing to charge them a certain amount. And there's a particular business model that I sort of introduced to her that she really likes, called the Robin Hood model, whereby you can charge people more at one end, and people that can afford it. And so you sort of, and sometimes you can even overcharge them and tell them you're overcharging them, and literally spell it out to them in front of them and say, I'm charging you this because I provide this service to people who can't afford it. So the more you buy from me, the more you're actually helping somebody to get my service that can't afford to do so.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting model, because a lot of people actually are prepared to do that, because it gives them a way to give back as well. They feel, by providing you, or by taking your service, by giving you money, that they're doing good, because they
Mm.
know that, you know, whatever it is that they paid, yes, it's above a premium rate, but somebody else is getting some help, and they can sort of sit back and feel a little bit good about themselves. So you're actually giving at both ends, really, if you think about it. And as soon as I kind of introduced that model, I think her mindset changed, and she suddenly went, oh, okay, because now she could see how she could make the money she needed to make, to be able to turn up for her clients properly, service the people that couldn't afford the service in the first place, and build something so much bigger than she'd ever thought that she could, by just trying to kind of squeeze by, charging as little as she possibly could, and ultimately living in what I call a charity mindset, essentially.
Yeah.
It's, I
And
can't
also,
tell
yeah, and
you.
also securing herself, right, in a process, which again, we're coming back to that. But I think it's a great model, actually. Great model. I've never heard of it. Really, really great idea for people who perhaps struggle a little bit with money mindset, or just the fact that, yes, I run a business, I do have to charge money,
Yeah.
and I do have to actually earn money. Otherwise, why am I putting so much time into it in the first place?
Yeah.
All right. I wanted to ask you because it's always interesting for me. Obviously, you have changed paths and you seem very, very happy, very fulfilled. But I'm sure that you are just as we all are, people that have run previous businesses, grateful for the amount of experience that you've gained with your property business. What would you say are the most transferable skills that you took from property into your coaching, something that has made your business right now much more efficient, better? What would be that one thing that you would pinpoint?
I think for me, negotiation was always one of my strong points, but also my favorite parts of the property side of things. I think for me, I love people. I love working with people, and I think when I was negotiating on the property side of things, there were a couple of times where I got deals to go through that other people hadn't managed to get through, and it's because I approached them differently, and I started to learn very much about how people worked. And I never wanted to be sort of the typical salesperson. And at one point, I worked with somebody. God love him, but he did the sort of the typical sort of Foxtons, slick back hair, suited, booted, turn up,
Ooh.
and this is why you need to work with me, or like this is why you want to work with me, like you're God's gift to them, and that you're lucky I've arrived in this situation. Don't worry, I'll sort you out. And it just made me cringe. I really didn't like that. I felt like it was sort of a little bit disrespectful, and you don't ask questions about them, whereas I went in a very different manner. and I still dressed smart, but I dressed down. I wasn't suited and booted. And I turned up and I asked questions, and I actually started to get to know people. And especially with that, I realized that the relationship with the landlord, for example, was equally as important as just getting the contract signed. Because at the end of the day, I what I did mainly for my sort of 10 plus years in that career was guaranteed rentals. So that landlord was going to be on my books for 5, 10, 15
Mm,
years. If the service is good and they don't want to sell, they could be with me indefinitely. So you're going to have a relationship with them, more so than maybe other people might if it's, if they've got clients that kind of just come buy something and leave. But yeah, so I got to know them and I asked them questions, and I found out how important the house was to them, and what were their priorities, and some prioritized other things. So having a standard contract, I had a standard contract, and then you have an addendum at the end, and each landlord had specific requests that I was willing to accommodate, to a certain extent, obviously, but but it was worth me asking questions, and it was worth me listening to them, and those personal stories. Sometimes people sit there and think, oh god, time's ticking, I've got to get this deal over the line, and they're talking about, they went on holiday with their father before he passed away, and you're kind of thinking this is irrelevant. It's not irrelevant.
it's
It's
not.
actually really important, because it's where you can offer a little bit of yourself up as well. And in doing so, at the end of the day, it's a typical phrase. I know it's sort of overused and a bit cliche, but people buy people.
Yeah.
And you don't have to give away your life story, but at the same time, if you can empathize with somebody and you can join them in their life story in some way, shape, or form, then I've walked into, there was one deal in particular that I remember, and when I turned up, the landlord was very passive aggressive, and she sort of said, "Well, I've thrown 4 people out that do what you do already, so why are you any different?" And I kind of thought, "Oh, good lord, okay, so we're we're going to start on that level,
This is
are
going
we?"
to be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And I think actually it made me relax, because I kind of, in my head, I'd sort of thought, well, this probably won't happen if she's that against it already. Like, blimey, what am I going to say
Mm,
that's going to turn this around? And as she was going around, she was sort of saying, "Oh, the last guy wanted a stud wall there, and that was never going to happen." And I'm standing there thinking, "I need a stud wall there as well." So, this is going to be a tricky negotiation. But actually, once I started talking to her, she started opening up about the fact that it was her father's house. He'd passed away. She was showing me pictures on her phone. We were talking about family. We were talking about health. We were talking about all these sorts of different things. And it became important that or very, very clear to me that it wasn't just about, the can you look after the house, or can you give me the money that I need for rental every single month. It was a case of, this is my dad's legacy, and this was the house that I remember being with him in, and it's really important to me. So rather than just jumping straight in and being like, I need this, I'm going to put a stud wall there, we're going to do this, and we can guarantee you this, they weren't her priorities, they weren't her values. And so, yes, I needed all of those things, but actually, I went in with, I can see how important this house is to you, and I can totally see the love and care that your dad's put into creating this. I want to make sure that we don't, abuse that, and I want to make sure that, yes, we do need this wall here. However, here are some before and after pictures of some work that we've done. I'm going to make sure that I'm, very careful about this. I'm going to make sure that we do this. And I'll put it in the contract specifically to say that we'll return it to its original state. All the things that actually were her original concerns. But I would never have known that if I hadn't have actually asked
there you
those
go.
questions and delved in, and allowed her to speak about her father and the house and the relationship and all those sorts of different things. And I ended up walking out of there with a signed contract and a hug. So
Oh,
it turned around hugely, from how I'd started. And I think that has definitely helped me understand how to deal with, and to sort of to talk to people a bit better. A lot of that comes in
mm,
coaching training as well, but I think I already kind of had an underlying level of knowing how important it is to sort of shut this sometimes and just let people talk, and whatever comes out is actually important to you, even if it's not necessarily relevant to the thing in front of you.
exactly. And I think and this is very prominent in the coaching world. A lot of the time, we forget the human factor of it all. There's this predicament of having to close a sale, or, guide people towards the sale, and then, do everything that's possible without actually listening to them. Whereas sales, like, if you think about it, it's mainly listening. It's not talking. It's not convincing somebody to do something. And we as human beings, we have this inherent need of being seen, right? Of being appreciated. And sometimes that's what distinguishes a good salesperson or a good coach or a good business owner, where you are able to see that person, where you are able to genuinely focus on them as opposed to what your agenda is at that time. And I think that's what the coaching world is really, really lacking and missing,
Mm.
because everybody's just focused on the transactional part as opposed to the human factor.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you sort of said that there's a human aspect to it, and also, people, when you're when you're trying to offer a service, it's sort of easier in one respect to offer a cookie cutter and say, this is what we do, take it or leave it. But actually, we're kind of moving more into a time of people by people, and a lot of it's one-on-one service, and they're buying, especially if your product or your service is you, and you're putting yourself out there as saying, I'm the coach and I'm the one that's going to be able to help you get from X to Y. If you're not willing to sit down and understand that person's individual needs, and you're just saying, look, this is what the program offers, do you want it or do you not want it, people don't feel seen, people don't feel heard, and they don't necessarily always see how your program or whatever it is that you do um, is really going to affect them, and they certainly don't feel appreciated. I know
Yeah.
I've been on sales calls before where they started out lovely, and people talk to you and they go, don't worry, Laura, this program's going to be brilliant for you, and they tell you all about it, and then you kind of get to the end and you think, no, do you know what? I'm not sure that this is right for me right now. I'm not going to commit right now. And I've seen the demeanor change like that. And
Mm.
suddenly it's like, right, okay, fine. Yeah, okay, bye, 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 bye. And it's just, I want to get off as quickly as possible because you're wasting my time now that I know you're not going to be a sale. And that doesn't make you feel very valued, does it? It makes you feel like,
Yeah, and it makes your defensive wall go up. I mean, people are defensive as they are, especially that there's just so many people offering the same thing right now, that you just come into that with a sort of reservation, right? So it's like, okay,
mhm.
I need to know how much I don't want this, as opposed to let
Yeah.
me just open up and listen to
And you
how
can
this
almost
person can
smell
help.
that air of desperation. I think you said it before. Like, if you walk into a room and you're thinking, I need X number of sales, there's just something about that people can tell, and they can tell when you're having a conversation with them as to whether you are genuinely connecting and you're genuinely interested in their story, or whether you just kind of want to get to the bit where it's like, yeah, 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 but guess what I do, and I can help you.
And yeah, by asking the relevant questions, you as a person, you have the responsibility and opportunity to
Mhm.
actually find out as well during the course of the conversation whether this is an actual right fit, right? We
Yeah.
kind of have this tendency of, oh yeah, let me sell it to everybody and their mother, but it's not the case. You need to, as a service provider, be very, very responsible by knowing, is this really relevant to this person? Is this
Mm.
something that they can use? Is this something that they will benefit from? Can I help them? Because a lot of the times that question is not asked, I believe. Can I help them? And then people go into programs or courses or even one-on-one containers, and they are very unhappy at the end of it, because from the very beginning, from the get-go, there was no chance of getting those results because of this misalignment, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it boils back down to everything we were saying at the very beginning as well, and knowing that you're in it for the right reasons and your motivations are beyond money. Because at the end of the day, if the motivation is solely money, then yeah, everyone's going to be a prospect to you because everybody is money.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're walking into it thinking, what I want to do is I want to help people, and I want to create this, legacy of all these amazing women that are creating these businesses that are going to help the world. Well, it's not going to serve me, just like it's not going to serve somebody else if I take on someone that's not really committed, or they've got the wrong idea, or they're not in it for the right reason. So, yeah, I could take them and, take their money as a client, but in actual fact, is that the best thing for me to do? No, it's not. So it's about being able to sort of put that desperation to the side and be able to say, no, my purpose, my mission, what I do is the sole reason, and I genuinely need to know if I can help you, because if I can't, I need to either recommend you to somebody else or just step away and say good luck, but I'm probably not the best service for you. And I think people respect that more as well, because there are so
I
many
think so, yeah.
few people that do it, that when somebody does sort of say, look, I'm not really sure, or even, even if you can then just adapt it and just sort of say, look, I don't think my program would actually work for you, but I do have the capacity
I
to.
wanted to say that, but I can recommend someone better. People just get so shocked when they hear that. It's just so uncommon in this world that
Mm,
whenever you say, look, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I don't think we're a right fit,
mhm.
people get into that shock mode of,
Right, what?
what? Why am I not the right fit for you?
And you know what the irony is as well, is it makes them want you
Want
more.
more, yeah,
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 which is bizarre, and sometimes it's just wrong time. So it might be like, look, I think this program could really help you, but I think you need to do
not
X, Y,
now.
and Z first. And if you want some coaching on that first, and then we'll start the program, then that's fine.
Mm,
But don't just kind of go into it being like, they need to go into my program. They need to go into my program,
yeah.
because that might not be the best thing for them. And if it's not, then you're not doing your job.
And it's also not going to be best for you because people who are not motivated, people who do not want to be there, are the worst type of clients to work with. And it's just going to strain you mentally if you have a little bit of decency. It's going to strain you mentally because you're going to look at their struggle and it's kind of going to brush off on you. And I've had several people like that, you could give them the best tools and the best things and they will still not do the work and it's not beneficial for anybody, is it?
No, no, it's not. No, especially if you know that from day one.
Yeah. All right, speaking of legacy, because we love that word, um what's the plan? What are you planning right now, 2023 and beyond? What is your big goal? What do you want to achieve? What are you focusing on now?
Well, so for me, I'm focusing on building up my group program. I think I've created what I've tried to do, because I've come from a business background as well. I studied business, but also, as you know, I've had the my own business for sort of well over a decade or so. I've tried to distill all of that into one program to try and help people go from, I think I kind of want to do this, but I'm not really sure how, to setting all those foundations that we've been talking about, making sure that it is sort of sturdy, steady, and it's got some longevity in it, it's the right thing for you, that kind of thing, and come out with a solid business plan at the end,
Mm,
going through all the business tricks as well. So it's I love the mental side of things. I love the sort of the psychology around business. So we go through limiting beliefs and values, purpose, all those sorts of different things. But we also go through a lot of business stuff. So we create the business plan, we create things like mission statements, we go through problem statements, we do all the research around it, all the kind of steps that I feel like are missed when people
mm.
go into business. So I'm really, really proud of it. That's what I'm sort of doing mainly at the minute. And and that's, I guess, the thing that is going to be my sort of, I say it's the biggest thing in my 2023. I'm also nearly 7 months pregnant, so at some point there
Congratulations
will
again.
be, thank you, there will be a baby. But that's again the brilliant thing about what I do. Like, I can be sort of flexible around it, and I can still support people around that. And that for me as well was the biggest thing. Like, when I had my first daughter, I was in a job that I hated, and so I was like, oh, how much time can I take off? And I was very fortunate to be able to build something that allowed me to take off as much time as I wanted. Whereas this time round, I'm like, I absolutely want to spend time with my baby, but I also love the idea of still chatting to my clients and making sure that they're all doing okay and catching up with them and so forth. So I'm really excited to try and sort of like blend the two together, which is good. Um, so that's likely to be my 2023, and I'm definitely looking for some incredible people to work with, because I'm really inspired by some of the stuff that's come out already, and I really love working with people that just have these huge big ideas and sort of trying to help them map those out. And then, yeah, as I say, the big kind of crazy hairy goal, as I call it, is the idea of creating this massive community of people that are all doing these incredible businesses and helping people left, right, and centre, be it socially or be it environmentally. Hearing about all these new businesses. The Earthshot Prize was back in December. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that was hugely inspiring. So, having people kind of come out with ideas like that would be my absolute dream. And so, yeah, my
Fantastic.
goal is to try and birth those in some way, shape, or form, and find the people that are keen to come with me on that journey.
Awesome. Keeping my fingers crossed. So, how can people find you in which case?
Oh, blimey. Okay. Well, I'm on so Instagram, I'm at i.am.Laura Parr, or my Facebook community, I guess is the main one. So Conscious Business Community. That's where I'll sort of be doing lives, helping people out, that kind of thing. You're more likely to get sort of more interaction at that point. And yeah, LinkedIn, I try to be as many places as I possibly can, but I think those are the main three places to find me. It's LinkedIn, Instagram, or my Facebook community.
All right. For anybody watching us on YouTube, I will be dropping the links into the About section or the description section and in the comments as well, so you can connect with Laura if you are interested in starting up a business the right way, sustainable way, with full clarity. Absolutely recommended to connect with Laura on that.
Thank you. That's perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with me today, Laura. It's been super enlightening. I loved some ideas. I'm definitely going to use them, making my notes, little mental notes on that. I really love the way you approach a business, and I really do believe that people need that clarity, that people need to find their deep inner why of why they actually want to do something beyond the obvious financial aspect of it, and having the preparedness, right? So that there is no situation like you've had where you have spent a lot of time on something essentially that kind of turned out to be a miss. And we don't want that for people. We want people to do it as quick as possible, and preferably do it in a successful way, but at the same time be fulfilled and happy people in a process.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's the thing you do most if you think about the amount of hours that you spend doing it. So, you should love it. You should absolutely love what you do, and, see it as something that you can give back with rather than just a means of making money to pay the bills. So yeah, I'm really excited. Thank you so much for having me on. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you for being here. All right, guys, if you loved today's interview, please do remember to subscribe and like the video so that the YouTube algorithm gods present it to more and more people, so that they too can benefit from our podcast. If you're listening on a podcast platform of your preferred choice, remember to drop us a little like or review, a little heart to what we do, talking about the truth, talking about all of the aspects of business. So if you are new, please do so. If you are coming back, hey, it's great to be back in season 2. We're going to have more amazing guests this season, so stay tuned. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up so that you never miss it. All right, thank you, Laura. Thank you, everybody, and I'm going to be seeing you next week.